Zach is back. It's the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
All right, we're back. 5:15 from the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studio. Zach Gelb Show, getting you ready for the Eagles game, which I'll be at tonight. When the show ends, I'll quickly scurry down to Lincoln Financial Field. We'll see preseason game number 2 between the Eagles and the Bills. The man that will be on the sidelines tonight does a great job covering the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's Dave Spadaro, who's always kind enough to hop on board with us right now. Dave, appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for the time, and how are you?
I'm doing great, Zach. I'm looking forward to this game, the debut of Alshon Jeffrey and Ronald Darby in the preseason at Lincoln Financial Field. I'm sure the fans will be very excited to see them.
You were very clairvoyant in the last game when it came to the prediction of the first play. Definitely being an Eagles insider, you have that knowledge. What can we expect tonight early from this Eagles offense, Dave?
It helps when the coach tells you.
Yeah.
I think that Carson will play only a little bit here tonight, and I would think they want to get Alshon into the game and into the passing game just a little bit. I don't think it's going to be forced early, but I would expect them to try to go to the air just a little bit. But, one thing, Zach, that they really did very poorly last week was run the football. 19 carries, 47 yards. And so while the starters won't play much, look, if they can establish the line of scrimmage, I think that they'd like to mix it up. But I would expect Alshon to get a touch at some point early in the game.
Is there a concern with you when it comes to the running backs? Is that a concern? I'm not really concerned about the backs, even though after what we saw last week.
No, but I think it's time to see what they can do a little bit. I mean, Green Bay brought a lot of pressure last week, and that was very unusual. I don't think that'll be the case tonight. But no, I'm not. I'm concerned that Wendell Smallwood's had a hamstring injury, another soft tissue injury. I'm concerned that Donnell Pumphrey didn't make anybody miss last week, so I want to see him make somebody miss this week. Now that he has a taste of what the NFL is all about. Concerned, no, but I want to see something from this group of running backs. I was impressed with Corey Clement last week. I want to see if he can continue to mount maybe a little roster run here, which I didn't think. I thought he was pretty much destined for the practice squad at best. Look, it's all about the offensive line. I think ultimately this offensive line will be very, very good.
In terms of that offensive line, I know you don't press the panic button with the preseason. Peters was excused from some personal reasons. He's not going to play tonight, correct?
Yes, correct.
So what does this offensive line look like? I guess you shift Lane Johnson out to left tackle. How about the rest of the offensive line without Peters?
You move Lane Johnson to left tackle. You've got Isaac Seumalo at left guard. You've got Jason Kelsey at center. You've got Brandon Brooks back in the lineup. He starts at right guard. And then Matt Tobin plays the right tackle position with Halapala Vaitai out with that injury, that knee injury he suffered last week. Not a serious injury. Could have been a whole lot worse, but he won't play tonight.
Talking to Dave Spadaro right now on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. We know the big conversation this week has been the trade with the Bills and the Eagles. We won't see Jordan Matthews in Philadelphia tonight because of the injury. But in terms of the Eagles replacing his production, it seems like it's going to be by committee, Dave. How do they replace that production in the slot?
Well, look, I mean, in the slot, it's going to be Nelson Aguilar. They're going to run tight ends through there. I think Bryce Treggs, when he gets healthy, will get a chance to win a roster spot there. I mean, it's time for Nelson Aguilar to step up and be a first-round draft pick, and there's no question that he's got a lot of responsibility in this offense. But most of the production will come in the passing game from Alshon Jeffrey and Torrey Smith. I mean, they're not. The Eagles don't need to look. I mean, the way that they've overhauled this wide receiver position, I'm so impressed. I never thought that 9 months after the season ended in 2016, we'd be sitting here looking at a wide receiver core that, to this point, has been as impressive as it's been that I've seen in practice. I mean, it's not just Jeffrey and Smith. It's Marcus Johnson, who will play tonight, looking great in practice. It's Aguilar, who's played very well in practice, did not play well in the game last week. It's Greg Ward, who played quarterback at the University of Houston, who looks like at some point in his career he could be an NFL player. It's Bryce Treggs, who has come on big time the last couple of weeks. Unfortunately, with that leg injury, I don't think he's going to play tonight. So, there's a lot of good things to look at in practice. Now these young players have to take it to the game.
How does Aguilar take it to the game? Do you think the confidence issues that he's had are behind him?
I do. I think so. Now, what's going to inevitably happen here at some point this year he's going to drop a pass in front of Lincoln Financial Field faithful, and they're going to boo, and he's going to hear it. So how does he respond to that? How does he react to that? How does he bounce back mentally, physically, emotionally? That's really going to be a key. I hope it doesn't happen tonight. I hope he can get on a little bit of run here because, in true objectivity, he has looked great in camp. He's very quick. He's been playing very fast. He's caught the ball beautifully. He's plucked it out of the air. And we'll see now. Look, you don't want him to sag and then have to rely on somebody like, Mac Hollins, who is more of an outside receiver. You really, really hope that your third-year player who's a first-round draft pick can step up to the challenge.
Let's get to the other side of that trade. We know they needed help in the secondary at corner. They're good at safeties, but corner is a big concern. Ronald Darby, impressions with him so far. What have you observed out of him?
Really like a notch above everything that I've seen in this camp as far as athletic ability among the cornerbacks, anticipation, his ability to close. He's not a real tall guy, but he's a bit thicker than I think people believed that he was. I mean, he's just a different level of cornerback. And so tonight, I think the starters will probably play into the second quarter on defense, and we'll get a pretty good look at him. Although the Bills aren't exactly, bringing murderers row out here in terms of wide receivers, but I think we'll get a good look at Ronald Darby and see what he can do. And I think it was a trade that really changes the complexion of this Eagles defense.
How do you think the Eagles shape up against the rest of the NFC East, Dave?
I mean, look, Zach, the Cowboys are going through their offseason and preseason woes. The Giants' offensive line is a major question mark. The Redskins lost their second-best pass rusher. They lost, all their wide receivers from last year. Their first-round pick from last year, Josh Doxson, has barely practiced. So I think it's anybody's game in the NFC East. And the Eagles were 1-6 in one-score games last year. They were 1-7 on the road. They start with games against Washington and Kansas City on the road. We'll know right away how much better they are emotionally and handling fourth quarter games. So, I think it's anybody's game in the NFC East, as it's been since 2004. No repeat winner in the division since 2003, 2004.
Not from their apex, but at a bare minimum, what would the bare minimum success be this year to view this year as a success for the Philadelphia Eagles, Dave?
I don't look at it that way. Winning the Super Bowl is a success. Anything else besides that is not a success. You certainly want this team to reach the postseason.
But hold on, this needs to be a Super Bowl year this year for it to be successful. I wouldn't agree with that.
But you're looking at it from a standpoint of, okay, what will it take for Doug Peterson to come back in the mind of the media? Well, I look at it like every goal is the same every year: win the Super Bowl. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, well, if the Eagles get to the second round of the playoffs, that's a successful year, because it's not a successful year. Would that represent a step forward? Yes, in some respects. It depends on how the season goes. I look at the Eagles and I see a team that has a young quarterback who's clearly on the rise. They've improved their defense greatly with some off-season additions. The draft, Derek Barnett looks like the real deal. With Darby coming in, I think the offense can score a lot of points. I have very, very, very high expectations for this football team.
How many wins do you think they get this year then?
I don't know. Anywhere from, it depends on how they handle the fourth quarter games. And on the disappointing side, I would say 9 wins, 8 to 9 wins. Happy side, I'm feeling better at 11, 12 wins.
Okay, wrapping up with Dave Spadaro as he gets ready to dominate the sidelines tonight on NBC. From a nickel aspect, who's going to be the nickel guy this year for the Eagles, especially with Ron Brooks' injuries, going up and down? Who's the nickel guy?
Well, tonight, this is all in the experimental stage. We're going to find out over the course of the next 3 preseason games here, but I would expect Patrick Robinson to be in the slot tonight as the nickel cornerback with Jalen Mills starting on the outside opposite Ronald Darby. That's the first look. Ron Brooks, when he gets back from his hamstring injury, will have to show that he can stay healthy. Missed most of last year with the quad injury, comes right back, gets hurt. First game, that is a concern with older players. We saw it with Otis McKelvin last year. We saw it on the offensive line with Alan Barber. You hope that Ron Brooks can stay healthy. He's got to prove he can.
I'm pumped up for it tonight, Dave, because you get football back in Philadelphia. It's always a great thing to see the great Eagles fans at Lincoln Financial Field. But there's a lot of talk, as there's been for the last few years, about eliminating some of these preseason games and maybe reducing it to 2. Where do you stand on that argument, Dave?
I actually stand on reducing it. I'm sitting here tonight thinking, I don't need to see Carson Wentz. I don't really want to see Darren Sproles. Alshon Jeffrey, what's he got to prove? I think from a timing standpoint, you can kind of get that all down in 1 week in practice, 1 quarter of play in the preseason. I mean, Carson Wentz played one half of a preseason game last year and went on to start 16 games. So I'm more along the lines of 2 preseason games, 18 regular season games. We'll see when the collective bargaining agreement comes up in 2021 what happens. But this seems like a very, very long offseason and preseason for the Eagles.
Just between you and I, because, it's just us talking on these airways right now. Doug tip you off tonight for any plays?
He has not yet. I usually ask him right before the game.
Well, enjoy it, Dave.
You know what's amazing? Zach, we're still almost an hour and 50 minutes away from kickoff. It seems like forever.
What's your pregame routine like when you're doing the sidelines? You get a nice run-in before the game?
I work out during the day. I usually play some tennis. I didn't get a chance to do that today. And then but usually I'm running from one thing to the next to the other. I do the radio hits, do a little Eagles Radio Network hit at 6, sometimes do a TV hit before, do some internet stuff, go down on the field, and just, twiddle my thumbs until the game starts.
Hey, I'll end you on this. I need the scouting report of Dave Spadaro, the tennis player.
Good player. Tenacious. Took up the game 7 years ago. I've had a very nice career, I'm happy to say, and play with a lot of great players, play as much as I can, and solid player, really devastating backhand, forehand. If I can get my forehand 7% better, I can play with anybody, anywhere.
Nice job, Roger Federer. We appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.